Hi everyone, my name is Gabriel and this is the Hour of the Raven, your channel for everything Ravenloft, RPG, Dungeons and Dragons, and horror. Today we will explore the haunted corridors of the House of Lament and unravel the sinister secrets that surround this abandoned mansion. Before we start, it should be noted that this video may contain spoilers about the new adventure from the book Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, The House of Lament. This video is about the tragic history and secrets of the house, and I will not cover specific details of the plot of the adventure, but the knowledge of these secrets and lore can hinder your experience as a player in the adventure. If you still intend to continue this exploration with us, or if you intend to narrate this adventure, first I will approach the House of Lament as it was in the previous edition of the Ravenloft campaign setting, and at the end of the video, I will make comparisons of the changes and updates made for the 5th edition of Dungeons & Dragons. Are you ready? As we are preparing to leave the lands of Borca, we are still plagued by doubts about which way to go. In the wild lands of Burbrek, we were contaminated with lycanthropy, and to avoid the curse of the wolf, we sealed an unholy pact with the Arcanoloth in Ahira. This fiendish creature requires us to search for the Amulet of Souls, an artifact that was last seen with the anchorite Raphael, a priest from Ezra, who intended to exorcise the evils of the House of Lament, a haunted house on the west of Borca. Tauret Johann, a cleric and friend of the Church of Ezra, asked us to abandon this unholy pact and seek the help of experienced monster hunters and scholars to get rid of our lycanthropy curse and the consequence of our pact with Inahira. However, as if attracted by a supernatural force, our path takes us to the vicinity of the imposing House of Lament, and we enter the mansion in search of the lost artifact. As we enter the gate and cross the wall that surrounds it, we enter a courtyard full of dead trees and dry leaves, and walk to the porch of the mansion. The oak door is not locked, and it creaks for a long time when opened, breaking the silence that seemed to reign inside. The only sound we hear is the constant beat of our hearts as we invade those forgotten halls and dusty corridors, looking for the remains of the anchorite Raphael and the Amulet of Souls. Gradually, the growing horror of that place begins to manifest, first with disturbing sounds and moving objects, and then with fearsome ghostly apparitions, while the secrets of its tragic past are exposed. Hour of the Raven.
Arise, lonely. Come join us and keep her company forever.
The House of Lament is a building that is both a domain and a Dark Lord of Ravenloft. The domain is classified as a pocket domain, a small domain that covers only the property of the house. In the past, it was once a domain that traveled through the mists, and it might appear in several different locations, but recently it seems to have settled in the western part of the domain of Borca. In the most recent adventure of the 5th edition, the House of Lament was established as a domain that can wander through the mists, appearing in several different locations, but that can always be accessed in Borca, where it remains with a fixed entrance location. The House of Lament adapts classic stories of haunted mansions to the Ravenloft setting, drinking from the source of legends and tales of hauntings. No matter the season, it's always autumn inside the domain, and the skies are always covered with dark clouds and is constantly plagued by powerful storms and strong winds. The house is surrounded by an old stone wall that marks the limits of the domain. After this wall, there is a moat filled with stagnant water and dry leaves. The building's inner courtyard is filled with dry and dead trees, and the gardens are taken by its twisted roots and vines. Those who explore this courtyard sometimes have the impression that its roots and vineyards move to catch the feet of explorers, and that the trees seem to move, swaying menacingly with the force of the wind. The construction is formed by an old stone tower, a remnant of an old fortress that existed in this place. Surrounding it is a once elegant building made of cut stone, which has 2 floors. Its walls are now covered with grey moss. Those who go up the porch are faced with a robust oak door, and after the doorway is a large entrance hall with a curved staircase. Numerous abandoned and forgotten rooms are scattered inside, and the air seems heavy and stagnant. The House of Lament is a powerful entity which has already absorbed and imprisoned countless spirits. Those who begin to explore this mansion will soon awaken the hauntings trapped within its walls. Supernatural manifestations begin in a subtle way, with distant and disturbing sounds, which perhaps can be explained by the action of the wind or natural causes. The sound of a lament caused by the wind going through the chimney, the beat of dry branches on windows, or even a cold spot caused by a draft. Gradually, these events become more and more disturbing, and show that the house is alive and full of supernatural activity. Lamentations can be heard on the creaking of its boards, with ghostly cries and screams echoing in the halls. The draft in the house seems to follow the movements of a heavy breathing coming from the fireplace, and doors and windows seem to open and close on their own, while the distant muffled sound of a heartbeat can be heard. Finally, explorers will experience even more drastic effects when they are directly plagued by hauntings. Mirrors can show ghostly reflections. Sudden drops in temperature can occur, while swarms of vermin and crawling creatures can appear over the ceiling to plummet over the unwary. The house itself began to send messages and threats to its explorers, with words written in blood on its walls, saying that Mara is alone, or even containing the name of one of the explorers, stating that their end is near. At night, restless spirits prowl the house, pounding on its doors and walls, preventing anyone from finding rest. Those who still manage to sleep have terrible dreams about the hauntings and history of this place. Finally, the house will select one of the fools that invaded its domain to suffer from a rapid aging process. This poor victim will decay quickly while the house drains its youth until he dies and becomes yet another of the hauntings trapped in this accursed dwelling. Only then the house seems to calm down for a moment, and other survivors can manage to leave the property. The house is practically indestructible and does not suffer any damage caused by fire, cold, or electricity. Those who try to use worldly weapons to destroy the walls have found that they shed dark, thick blood, and that such substance will drain and join together to form a fearsome blood elemental, which will attack those who intend to destroy the building. Escaping the house is not a simple task. When the House of Lament begins to torment its visitors, it closes the frontier of its domain, and the mansion is overcome by a violent storm. The house can control its doors and windows and shut and close. Stairs can twist and boards can open on the floor to trap those trying to escape. In the outer courtyard, roots and trees can prevent someone from escaping, and a strong storm can throw lightning on those who try to climb the walls of the property. Many of the brave or foolish people who try to confront the House of Lament to appease the spirit of the dead end up making a fatal mistake. The search for bodies to give an appropriate burial can reveal skeletons hidden in the walls of the tower, and seances can contact several entities, but nothing can appease the evil that reside in this domain. The House of Lament is an evil entity which has already absorbed countless tormented souls, and perhaps its origins refer to the poor and tragic story of Mara Silva. Rumor says that only the voluntary and spontaneous sacrifice of a soul to keep company to these spirits will be able to destroy the House of Lament. But how the discussed building became the focus of so much evil and torment? What tragedies marked the past of the House of Lament and made it an evil entity hungry for souls? In the distant past, in an unknown land, the building was the castle of Lord Dranzorg, of which today only the tower remains. To guarantee his power and military conquest, Lord Dranzorg surrounded himself with mercenaries and bandits, but he knew that the loyalty of these men was fragile and would only last if gold poured into their pockets. To appease his men during times of peace, Dranzorg sent them to attack and torment the neighboring lands of Lord Silva. Lord Silva was an elderly man, and he was already tired of battles. His eldest son had died in the last war, and he now lacked the strength to lead the defense of his lands. He had a single daughter named Mara Silva, a beautiful young woman with red hair. Mara was in love with one of the officers in service of her father's guard. However, to seek peace with the belligerent Lord Dranzorg, Lord Silva offered him Mara's hand in marriage. Dranzorg accepted the terms of peace, and Mara was sent to his lands to marry him. Dranzorg, however, did not intend to fulfill any peace agreement. He secretly asked his mercenaries to attack and hijack Mara's carriage, and then informed Lord Silva that his daughter never reached her destination. Accusing his neighbor of trying to deceive him, he proceeded with his war plans to conquest his lands. Lord Silva tried to send his men to rescue his daughter, among them the officer with whom Mara was in love, but they all perished in a frustrated attempt to invade the castle. Mara's fate, however, was even more tragic. An ancient tradition said that the walls of a fortress had to be reinforced by a creature's vital energy, and sometimes a deer or a cat was walled up alive. Dranzorg ordered an alcove to be opened in one of these walls, where the poor Mara was walled up and entombed. For days, Mara's screams could be heard echoing through the fortress, and neither Dranzorg nor his men could sleep. What at first was a macabre amusement became a cause for fear when, even after the time that she should have died, Mara continued to scream. Dranzorg decided to find out what had happened and removed the stones from the wall, only to discover that the alcove was empty and Mara's body was nowhere to be found. However, something escaped that prison, and since that night, strange supernatural events began to take place in the fortress. A soldier fell from the castle walls that night, and his body was found in the morning. Soon, all those who lived in the fortress were killed or fled from the fortress to escape the attacks of this supernatural entity. Many were those who committed suicide, or whose bodies were found dead, with expressions of extreme horror. After months of horror, Dranzorg, practically alone in his fortress, heard a female voice call his name. Went on to the alcove where Mara was entombed, and crawled there to lay down and die, and where his skeleton can still be found. Over the course of more than 3 centuries, the castle has become a ruin, and only the tower has withstood the effects of time. A rich merchant came to acquire those lands, and admiring the strength and endurance of that tower, ordered the construction of a mansion around it. Soon, he and his family came to face the horrors of the House of Lament, and they died or disappeared in mysterious circumstances, just like Lord Dranzog's men. The House of Lament is alive. It is an evil and powerful entity that has already absorbed many spirits, and when it absorbed Mara, it became sensitive to her pain, suffering, and desire for revenge. Nothing can appease its fury and hunger, and it may never be satisfied with consuming the souls of the unwary who explore their haunted halls and corridors. In the forthcoming book, Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, the House of Lament is adapted to the 5th edition and became an introductory adventure to the setting. In this adventure, the characters must help a group of paranormal investigators to purge the evil that inhabits the house, and must contact these restless spirits through seances with a spirit board. The new House of Lament is a domain whose Dark Lord is a collective of imprisoned spirits. Most of them have already become only vestiges of who they once were, but the strongest personalities still resist. Some changes were also made in the history and past of the House of Lament. In the 5th edition version, a warlord named Dalk Drownzor carried out a conquest campaign, devastating the country while commanding an army of bandits and mercenaries. His conquest reached the lands of Count Cordon Silva, and he took the fortress of this nobleman and made Castle Lavent his home. Months later, the tireless warrior Mara Silva, who was in distant lands at the time, received the news that her father had been murdered and defeated by an invading warlord. Demanding old favors and intimidating mercenaries, she gathered troops and started marching toward her family's ancestral home. Mara hoped to find support from the local nobility for her cause, but most of her father's former allies cower in the face of the cruelty of Dalk Dranzor, who used it to entomb his enemies alive within the walls of his castle. Mara did not wait long for the support of the disloyal nobles, and hastily led her forces against Castle Lavent. Her path was surrounded by ambushes and desertions that led to a rapid decline of the numbers of her army. When she finally reached the castle, she had few soldiers in her company. When she was alone, she regretted her situation and spoke her frustrations in the dark of night. Some dark entity responded her plea, offering her the power to retake her family's land, with the condition that she would never again be able to leave her home. Mara accepted the dark proposal, but soon afterward she heard a noise of battle, and she and her men were captured by the forces of Dranzor. Dranzor took everyone inside the castle and threatened to entomb them on the walls of his fortress. Mara's soldiers begged for their lives, and Dranzor said he would spare them if they agreed to watch Mara's death and spread the word of her defeat. When her men betrayed her, agreeing with Dranzor's proposal, Mara gave a cry of supernatural fury, which stunned her enemies, making their ears bleed. With bare hands, she attacked and murdered Dranzor, and took his axe from him. Then, in murderous fury, she murdered everyone present in the castle, including her former soldiers. Shortly thereafter, the nobles of the region received an invitation from Mara Silva to come and celebrate her victory against warlord Dranzor and the liberation of her father's lands. The aristocrats and nobles who attended Castle Lavent discovered that they were in an empty castle, stained with the blood of the carnage that had occurred there. Mara Silva took these nobles and judged them for not having helped her father or giving her the support to regain her lands, and walled them up in the castle walls. Legends were spread about Mara's cruelty and about the castle whose walls screamed lament. The castle was avoided by everyone, and Mara was never seen again. Over time, the Castle of Lament fell into ruins, and centuries later, the family of a merchant, Lauren Halvest, acquired those lands. Only the tower of the castle remained standing, and he built a luxurious mansion for his family. They lived peacefully in their mansion for many years, until they began to disappear mysteriously. No one who investigated the disappearance found any trace of the family, but they were quite disturbed by the hauntings in the house. While the horrors of its tragic past are revealed, we conduct a long exploration of its dark halls until we find in the abandoned tower the mortal remains of Raphael, the anchorite, and in his hands the amulet of souls. We take the amulet from his skeletal hands and prepare to leave the haunted place. Shortly after entering the abandoned rooms of the House of Lament, a terrible storm had fallen, with constant lightning rays cutting the air, making it impossible to leave the house. With no means of escaping, we look for a safe room to wait the storm and restore our energies. But the specters trapped in its walls do not offer us any chance to rest. Haunted and tormented, we glimpse at terrible horrors as the spirit screams for our souls, to keep them company in their torment. After hours of endless torments, we are finally overcome by tiredness and pass out exhausted in one of the rooms, with the amulet of souls in our hands. In dreams, we meet the spirit of Raphael, the anchorite. The priest's ghost is imprisoned in the amulet of souls and says that the artifact we carry is an item of great power, and anyone who wears the amulet in the moment of their death will have his soul imprisoned within it. With horror, we realize Inahira's plans for the amulet. The Arcanoloth intended to somehow murder Tara Coliana when she wears the amulet, imprisoned the soul of Tatiana, and finally obtaining an advantage over his enemy Count Strahd. Raphael tells us that the House of Lament would never let us escape without first gathering a soul to keep the haunted spirits company. His own soul was not part of this haunted abode, for when he died, his spirit was trapped in the amulet of souls. If he swore, in Ezra's name, that we would turn away from Inahira's profane pact and seek a path of redemption, Raphael's spirit would be willing to voluntarily sacrifice his soul to the House of Lament, and ensure that we have a chance to escape alive and redeem ourselves of our path of darkness, regretting our involvement with the Arcanoloth and our betrayal of Tara Coliana. We swore to the spectral anchorite our intention of redemption, and vowed to renounce the dark gifts from Inahira. And we suddenly woke up in the haunted rooms of the House of Lament. The stagnant air seemed to be charged with evil energies, and we noticed that the amulet glows slightly in our hands. While the shadows seemed to come alive to surround us, we noticed how the spirit of the anchorite Raphael manifests itself from the amulet and walks toward the shadows. With a last look, he said goodbye to us and entered the darkness. The silence seems to take over the house again, and the storm disappeared. We quickly left the House of Lament without looking back. Firm in our intention to break the pact with Inahira, we decide to head towards Rishmulor and seek the support of our Nuikin to help us with our curse of lycanthropy. Crossing the forest of Borka, however, we came across a camp of a band of soldiers, hidden in the woods. Could we be facing the troops of Falkovnia, who constantly invade this region of Borca in their movements and exchanges with the kingdom of Invidia? We do not have time to clear our doubts when we hear a noise behind us and the dry sound of something crashing against our skull. When we awaken from a state of unconsciousness, we are being carried as slaves and prisoners into the interior of the realm of Falkovnia. Join us, subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, and let us together discover what secrets and horrors await us in the lands of Falkovnia. Also, tell me what version of the House of Lament do you prefer? The one from 2nd edition of the new update version of the Run Richten Guide to Ravenloft? Tell me on the comments below.